When it comes to winning in Magic the Gathering, I think it's safe to say that it's more in the eyes of the loser than the actual winner. It's not really a set of criteria that you achieve that makes you win, but more of a set of criteria your opponents achieve that makes them lose. Them having 0 health, no cards in deck, 10 infect. You know, the question, how will I win, comes down to how will the opponents lose. So, for example, in a mill deck, the answer to that question is when the opponent has no cards in their deck. What if we just kinda trimmed the fat off of a mill strategy? Let me introduce you to my new strategy concept, lobotomy decks. So like I said, lobotomy decks just trim the fat off a mill deck. The mill deck answers the question, how are the opponents gonna lose, with the answer, when they have no cards in their deck. A lobotomy deck just goes, yeah, that takes too long. The opponents lose when they have no valuable plays they can make anymore, because we took them out of their deck. Yeah, we'll talk about it. Lobotomy is a term used in Magic to describe a card that can exile a specific card out of someone's hand, graveyard, and/or library, and comes from the Tempest card by the same name that removes all copies of a card out of the opponent's hand, graveyard, and library. While extremely useful and unique, a lot of people will read these cards and they'll see the phrase, and all cards with the same name, because, you know, a lot of lobotomy cards have that phrase, and they'll go, this is useless in Commander, which, fair, but you also have to acknowledge that when I hear someone say, this is useless in Commander, my ears kind of perk up like a little golden retriever, and I kind of have to make it work. A lobotomy strategy or deck would be a proactive one. Its whole strategy is about removing problems before they even happen. A control deck will remove problems while they're happening. Spot removal that most people run will handle problems as they're happening, or maybe after they've happened a little bit. These type of decks just say, no, that's not gonna happen ever. And you better believe we're gonna use that to be very political. Oh, you're running tokens and you can't play anything because you're worried he's gonna play one of his 8 board wipes? I could rip it out of his hand so he can't play it if you don't swing at me type vibe. So to sum it up, lobotomy decks are political, controlling, resilient, and dead set on stopping the problem before it even starts. So let's talk about what constitutes like a lobotomy card for me when it comes to making a lobotomy deck, because it's not just the cards that rip out of hand and out of library. There's some other super useful effects that work in a deck like this. Of course, stuff like surgical extraction and lobotomy are both great examples of cards for a deck like this, but for the sake of the video, the definition changes a little bit. A lobotomy card is any card that proactively can stop a problem. For instance, Null Chamber is a great example of a lobotomy card, as it prevents a named card from being played, essentially filling a very similar role to the classic lobotomy cards, but, you know, in a different way. Discard cards that exile are another great way to stop problems before they happen. Cards like Agonizing Remorse, Appetite for Brains, and Cruel Claw's Heist are some great examples of cards that can really put the brakes on a game plan. On top of all this, cards that can just like exile specific cards or entire graveyards are another great way to just lobotomize a problem that's in grave, because, you know, there's a lot of decks that try to like cheat and use stuff out of the grave way too early, and we have to have some ways to deal with that. Cards like Deathrite Shaman, Bajuka Bog, and Bogart Trawler are all great removal problems for opponents' graveyards. Also, don't forget some of those old school Spectre cards. Pay respect to the Spectre cards, alright? Shimmy Inspector, Thief of Sanity, both bangers, both definitely fill the role of being lobotomy creatures that just, you know, lobotomize on a stick. And keep in mind, it's highly suggested to use these lobotomy effects very politically. Again, if someone's not doing so hot at the table, you could make a new ally very easily by removing something from another opponent's deck that could stop their strategy. I know I'm gonna get asked the same question I get asked on a lot of my videos like this. How do you plan to win? Well, I mean, it's a control strategy, so like however, Hullbreaker Horror, Approach of the Second Sun, some third way that control decks win. I think this is just another way of playing control. It's just a proactive control deck. Win, honestly, however you really want. I think the real question comes in when you ask yourself, are there any commanders that, like, you know, promote this style of gameplay? And yeah, there are actually. Circa Demir Lobotomist is the first and most obvious commander for the strategy. For 2 a blue and a black, you get a 2/3 that turns every blue and or black spell you play into the top card of a player's deck being exiled. The added bonus to this is that no opponents can play spells with the same name as things you've exiled. So if you hit a Soul Ring, no one can play Soul Ring. You hit that Thassa, no one can play Thassa. It's pretty cool, honestly. Blue-black spells like the aforementioned Lobotomy will trigger this guy twice. So Lobotomy's, you know, ripping a ton of stuff out of the deck. Umbra's Fear Manifest is another great one. For 3 a blue and a black, we get a 1/1 that gets +1/+1 for each card your opponents own in exile, which pairs great with all these lobotomy effects that are exiling tons of cards out of our opponent's decks. Whenever Umbris or another nightmare or horror enters the battlefield, target opponent exiles cards off top until they hit a land, which is a great way to just keep exiling even more stuff out of the game before it can happen. And I also really like the new Thunder Junction Marchesa, Dealer of Death, which works great with lobotomy effects, turning all of our lobotomy targets into card fixing and draw, which is, you know, just nice to have on a commander, drawing us into more lobotomy effects, into some of our win cons, into stuff like that. I hope this video was at all entertaining to you guys or inspired some kind of creativity or deck building for you. I know I've been gone for a minute, haven't uploaded in a while. It's a little bit of a shorter video, kind of easing back into the upload here. We got some stuff coming. I've been, you know, dieting, working on my health a little bit. That's going well. We started at 252. We're sitting around 228 right now. So, pretty good weight loss. And yeah, I appreciate you guys. Hope you guys liked the video. See you guys in the next one.